Greetings. The intent for this mask really isn't so much about remaining anonymous as it is about the fact that I watched the movie V for Vendetta for the very first time last night, and I was shocked at how much the movie imitates reality. Truth is stranger than fiction, as they say, but I'm not here to talk about the movie, but things as they really are. The reason V for Vendetta and The Matrix, both movies made by the Wachowski brothers, resonated so much with people is because they really reflect reality, what is really going on in the world. The mask is symbolic of resistance to unjust government. It is symbolic of organizing an activist response to an overreaching and unlawful government. I'm hoping that my mask will promote a response to the many unconstitutional acts by the government that seem to be exponentially growing every day. I would like to turn now to the incident in Oregon, and I'll take the mask off because it reminds me of oppressive government. It's hard to breathe, it's repressive, oppressive, and so I'm going to take it off. The jury is really out still on what happened there that day. The government claims that LaVoy Finicum reached for a gun, and that he did in fact have a 9mm semi-automatic on his person, and that law enforcement acted appropriately and proportionately in the response with deadly force. But here is the problem. The eyewitness account by the 18-year-old Victoria Sharp said that law enforcement fired at them at the first checkpoint, where they had stopped for about 4 minutes. She said that the front seat passenger, Ryan Payne, stuck his hands out to show he was unarmed, and then he stuck his head out, at which point he was shot at, according to her. If that is true, this is significant and is evidence of government ambush. It was because of that first shot fired by the government that led LaVoy, allegedly, to speed away where he encountered a second checkpoint. Victoria Sharp claimed that they all felt for their life. At the second checkpoint, he tried to go around it, and a government official moved in front of him, probably firing a shot that hit his windshield. And I think LaVoy tried to avoid hitting him and dug himself deeper into the drift of the snow. According to the other passengers, LaVoy jumped out with his hands up in the air, also shown in the video. It's unclear if he was shot while surrendering or reaching for a gun on his left side. If they shot at him first, he may have tried to reach for his gun in self-defense or simply reacting to a wound. If he reached for his gun before they shot at him, then further forensic evidence is required. Putting myself in the place of the law enforcement officer, I would need to see the gun in his hand before I pulled the trigger. It was daylight. It was pretty clear that they could see whether he had a gun in his hand, so there was no need to shoot him, and it was appropriate to use restraint. The most damning to the government's case is what happened after LaVoy was down. As the government proceeded to fire several more rounds into the pickup and the puffs of smoke from bullets hitting the vehicle can be seen, the car was disabled in the snow and not going anywhere. The other 4 passengers did not pose any threat to law enforcement, did not point weapons at them, and did not shout any threats. They were not driving, and for all the law enforcement knew, they were unwilling hostages of LaVoy. Therefore, it was totally inappropriate to fire at them. Listening to other law enforcement officers, they claimed that shooting at a car with no evidence of armed people is not correct protocol, especially when the car is disabled and presents no threat to others. Probably the only thing that saved the passengers was the deep snow that prevented penetration to the car floor where they were lying. Victoria Sharp said they were looking for some white cloth so they could surrender without being shot. Someone commented that the passenger that a passenger threw a gun out the vehicle as part of the surrender. I could not see any evidence of that. Joel Skousen believes that the government, will find an excuse to not release the dash cam or helmet cam videos taken at the scene with close-ups and sound. With the vehicles at the first checkpoint and the second checkpoint, there must be dozens of videos available. Forensic analysis will hopefully reveal what really happened over the next several months of lawsuits, discovery, and subpoenas that will surely come. But the government is definitely not beyond covering up, sealing, and tampering with evidence. This brings me to the real message that I want to give. I am 65 years old, growing up in the happy days, post-war baby boom generation. We grew up with Disney and Mickey Mouse Club. We had just won World War II, enjoying unprecedented prosperity, and all was good. We did the Pledge of Allegiance every day and were patriotic to the marrow of our bones. The Communist Soviet Union were the bad guys, and we were the good guys. The USA always, and I mean always, occupied the moral high ground. Unfortunately, later in life, that bubble was popped, and things were not as they seem. Somebody was manipulating our reality and the official narrative. So many people I know remain in this false reality. They remain asleep, and they remain ferociously patriotic. The U.S. government can do no wrong for most people. Or at least for most people, they really don't care. They're too busy trying to survive, handle bad health, and make ends meet economically. Consequently, the elites, those in control, who are at the top of the pyramid, continue to grow in power under the noses of the masses. They remind me of termites eating the foundation of a beautiful building. The root of the evil at the Oregon incident is the unconstitutional ownership of the millions of acres by the feds of land in the West. It doesn't really matter if Congress approved it or even if the Supreme Court approved it. No branch of the government can deviate from the Constitution unless there is an amendment requiring 2/3 of the states to ratify that amendment. I won't get into the specific articles that talk about federal ownership of property and land, but it's pretty clear that it was meant for the states to have control over the land within their boundaries unless they consented to giving that land to the federal government. There has not been any kind of constitutional amendment by 2/3 of the states, and in the ownership of these millions and millions and millions of acres, mostly in western states, remains in the hands of the federal government. This issue is like a 7-ton elephant in the living room. It just simply can't be ignored. Even though it's been this way for a long time, the 7-ton elephant remains there. Like I said before, the only way the Constitution can be changed is by a constitutional amendment. That has not happened. Anything less or more than that will not be recognized by the people and will lead to future confrontations. Powerful interests are involved, worth trillions of dollars. The giving of federal land back to the states for constitutional reasons will not happen easily. Many state actors or people who work in the state government are in bed with the federal government. They're in allegiance and alliance with them. In fact, the federal government has enormous leverage power over the states in terms of federal revenue sharing and other things of that nature. Consequently, the states continue to allow their lands to be owned by the federal government. The people are the ones who are going to have to change this, not government officials. So it'll take a grassroots, everyday people kind of effort to keep things moving. So what are we going to do about this? What are some of the things we can do? One thing I would suggest is everybody go to the Steve Avery Project on Facebook and see what activists are doing for Steve Avery regarding the Netflix documentary Making of a Murderer. If anybody's seen that documentary, it's caused an enormous reaction by grassroots people who have decided to do something about it. We can do something similar for the Bundys. We need to brainstorm ideas. But a man has died unnecessarily through overreach of the federal government. His death should not be in vain. We need to help Ammon and his group with their legal battle. It will be huge. I am calling for more ideas, and I'm happy to become a cog in the wheel if someone has already organized an appropriate call for action. As Ammon Bundy said, he would much rather be home hugging his 6 children and his wife instead of being held in a prison. We can choose the comfort of life as usual and not do anything, or we can choose to go back to our fantasy world, or we can choose to face the harsh reality like Bundy is doing. What will you choose? I hope you will choose to support the Bundys, and I hope you will study the Constitution and see that there is just cause for what he's doing. Thank you.